All right, here we go. Episode 59. We are now officially live. If you're listening to this as a podcast, then, nothing seems out of place right now. If you're one of the few who are waiting for us to start live, a couple of technical difficulties, which we're going to get into. But how you doing? My name is Chris Falco, Director of Game Day Operations, Community Relations, the in-arena voice of your Brandon Wheat Kings, joined with my podcast host, the radio voice of the Brandon Wheat Kings, Rob Mann. Rob, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks, despite a couple of minor technical snafus, but it is training camp. Things are meant to be scrambly this time of year.
This is when we do all that. That is right. So much time and effort into setting everything up so it looks so great, and then, have to swap out one battery on one camera, and for some reason, something just was not working. But
that's the Jenga block that brings the whole house down. There's always going to be one.
Absolutely. So, bottom line is we are here and very excited on the eve of training camp beginning. It is player registration coming up not all too long from now. We have got a couple of guests who are going to be joining us here today. We have a interview that we recorded earlier on with Carson Bjarnason. Barney was around, so we wanted to sit down and talk to him about a few different things. Meanwhile, we have got Chris Moulton, the Director of Hockey Operations for the Brandon Wheat Kings. He's going to be here live in the studio in about 15 minutes or so from now. So if you are watching live on the YouTube channel and you want to submit any questions or anything for Mr. Chris Moulton, by all means, go ahead and you can do that now. Rob, you are on the verge of your first Wheat King training camp. How excited are you right now today?
I'm pumped. And
honestly,
training camp pumps me up every year because there's so much relentless optimism. It's like the draft. Everything is onwards and upwards. All these players that you're seeing on your training camp lists, some of them, you're wondering what kind of summer they've had. You're wondering how much better they're going to be this season. What kind of shape are they going to come to camp in? How motivated are they going to be? It's a developmental league. So the whole point is the players take steps forward, and you want to see who's taken the biggest. You're waiting to be pleasantly surprised, and you kind of know you're going to be. Like, there's always somebody who stands out in a really positive way, and we could speculate forever on who it might be. I've got a few names in mind, but ultimately, somebody is going to jump off the page at you in a way that you didn't expect. And it might very well be the superstars. Like, you might come to camp expecting a Nate Danielson or a Carson Bjarnason or a Brett Hyland to be exceptional, and they might even step beyond that. You never know. I can't wait to find out.
Well, we do have a list of the teams that we're going to be talking about, and very cool this year that not only are we going with the colors of Team Black, Team Gray, Team Gold, but naming it after some Wheat King legends. So if you have not heard, this year, Team Black will be named after Brad McCrimmon. It'll be Team McCrimmon. Team Gray is named after Wade Redden, so Team Redden, and Team Gold named after Mark Stone, so Team Stone. Going to be very cool and pretty neat that the logos on the front of the jerseys are from the era that these guys played.
It seems that I'm getting older all the time because a player that I grew up watching play for the Wheat Kings is now a Wheat Kings legend. I can still remember watching in the 2010 Memorial Cup, the first time I saw Mark Stone live in person, watching him get into a fight with Craig Dunnick, and I don't know if he's been in a fight since in his entire hockey career, but he's come so far since his time with the Brandon Wheat Kings, and I think looking at his NHL career, which now includes a Stanley Cup, it is fair to call him a legend.
Now you're making me feel old because I've seen two of these guys play, and both of them were legends in my day. But I know we have listeners who are going to say, oh, I've seen all three of those guys play, so what does that say about me? Well, it's going to be awesome this weekend to see those teams out there. Again, we're going to go through some of the names that you can expect, and we're going to talk with Chris Moulton about that. As for the schedule itself, everything kind of begins here tonight. Actually, before we get even into that, why don't we talk about today? Today is a very fun day around here for us. It is the Wheat King Media Day. So this is the day, Rob, that a lot of the veterans, they're here, they're getting their fitness testing done. After they do that, they come on in and we get to do all the video stuff and all the photos. And it's just generally a fun day to be around the guys.
Absolutely. They get to come in and meet Perry Bergson, by the way, a player or a person that...
what a huge thrill that is as well.
That is the highlight of their day. Although...
And how bright is his shirt? That's always a game we like to play as well with Perry.
Well, not bright today, but certainly multicolored. And I was saying to him today, actually, I've seen him wear a ton of really vibrant shirts. I don't think I've ever seen the same one twice.
I don't think so either, but I don't think he ever also owns like a lot of new shirts. Perry is a master thrift shopper. He goes and he finds some very unique shirts. As any of the Wheat King fans who have seen, of course, in the past number of years when we have these, like for example, training camp reports. every single day this weekend, I can almost guarantee that when we have Perry on the interviews, every day is going to be a different, very brightly colored shirt. But it was a lot of fun with them. We did a whole bunch of the video stuff, doing the video profiles, showing off some of their characters, and I'm telling you, these guys, this group this year, it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun, Rob.
They're a fun group of guys. They're easy to talk to. They're very good conversationalists, and what strikes me is they're all excited. We talk about the excitement around training camp. When you talk to these guys, one of the first things they'll ask you is, how do you feel about this season? And I've responded, well, I'm pretty excited. It looks like a good group. It looks like there's opportunity to move up within the division because there's kind of a shifting of the balance of power. And these guys will talk about what a good group they have, how excited they are. I think there's some high internal expectations. I know there is within the organization, but I'm very sure now after today that there's high expectations within the dressing room.
There sure is, and it's not going to take very long for us to see really how this is going to start to shape up. Tonight, it is registration and then all the heights and the weights for the players, a bit of a player and parent meeting, but tomorrow the action begins, and everything that we're about to talk about, it is free and open for the public, so please come on down. You can watch all these things that are happening on the ice. Begins on the ice tomorrow morning at 9:30 with a team practice. That's the team of Crimmin going to be practicing. At 10:30, we got another team practice. At 11:30, the first skill session is going to be at 3. That one is off ice. So 9:30, 10:30, 11:30 is all going to be on ice. You can go watch. And the first game is going to be happening tomorrow at 4:30. So you can go and you can check out that game. The full schedule is up on the social media, and it's going to be a very jam-packed weekend with games on Friday. You got 2 on Saturday. The one on the Sunday is the one, Rob, where they do end up switching the team. So we go from McCrimmon, Redden, and Stone at that point to a all non-veteran players game. So that Sunday game is for basically all the non-returning players, their final chance to show the coaching staff what they can do. That'll be a very interesting one. That one's happening at 11 o'clock in the morning. And all the things we've talked about so far, all happening here at the Keystone Center, Westover Place, before Monday, the annual Black and Gold game. This one is one that I know I always have a lot of fun at because you get that great mix of returning vets who are still trying to prove themselves. You get those carryovers from the rookies who, some of the listed guys. There's always those battles in camp. By Monday, those battles are at their peak, and that game is at 1 o'clock, and that's the one event that's not over here at the Keystone. It's over at J&G Homes Arena.
And the rookie game is always fun because when you get any other game in camp, you get guys thinking to themselves, well, I'm playing against guys who might be my future teammates or who are my current teammates, so we won't go pedal to the metal. We won't necessarily finish all the checks we would in a regular season game. The rookie game, there's kind of a mentality of, A, I know there's spots in the Black and Gold game on the line, and B, these guys aren't my teammates. Some of them might be. Some of them hopefully will be. But I can maybe go a little bit more all out in a game like that. There's a little bit more driving the net. There's a little more nastiness. These rookie games tend to have a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder. And then there's the Black and Gold game. And we might be tempted to think, because there's 19 returning guys in camp, that there's nothing to battle for, that there's no roster spot up for grabs. Well, first of all, any WHL veteran observer will tell you vets do lose spots with poor training camps. There's nothing that's written in stone yet. There's no guarantee that if you were on the team last year, you're going to be on the team this season. Returning guys are great once the season begins. You need that veteran leadership, but if you're a veteran guy thinking, I was here last year, my spot's safe, I'm fine, the rookies are going to teach you in a real hurry that that's not the case.
You also have those battles of we've got a number of the last couple of years, again, first, second, and third round draft picks who are here fighting for those spots. There's sometimes guys who are lower in the draft that develop later, or a guy like when Carson Bjarnason came into this organization 2 years ago, undrafted, signed over the summer, came in, wowed everybody at camp, and now, like I said, here he is. And we're going to talk to him in just a few minutes. But there's always those storylines to follow as well. And we're going to talk to Chris Moulton because there are a number of guys who could easily stand out in that way. Meanwhile, we have got not just that going on, but of course getting ready for the entire season at the same time, preseason. Before we get further into that, Rob, it's a podcast. It's a little more free form. Last week was more about getting all the bugs out, making sure it all worked. This week, I want to kind of pull back the curtain just a little bit before we get into Carson Bjarnason, before we get into Chris Moulton, our new voice of the Brandon Wheat Kings, Rob Mann. We've read some articles with you, but now to actually get to hear you talk, tell us, like last week we talked briefly about just, we knew kind of from Winnipeg and PA, but kind of tell us a little bit more about your journey, about how you got here.
So play-by-play became a passion that I almost backed into. I very, very luckily fell into this. I was working with the Manitoba Bisons writing game stories. This was when I was still in creative communications at Red River, and just off to my right in the press box, which the Bison had at the time, obviously looked a lot different then than it does now that the Winnipeg Ice have remodeled it and then departed, leaving the Bisons with an improved arena. There was off to my right a webcast going on with play-by-play. It was for Canada West TV. And I thought, well, I've never done this before, but I'd like to give it a try. And the guy said, sure, we're always looking for play-by-play guys, hop on. And in 2014, I got on my first webcast, and immediately, right away, it was, okay, yeah, this right here. I want to do this forever. And I've been running down that career path ever since. It's taken me to Estevan, Saskatchewan for 4 years where I had a blast. It's taken me to Prince Albert for the last 2. Now for the first time since 2017, I get to come back to Manitoba. So it's kind of brought me full circle. And of course, the last 2 years, I got to call games at Wayne Fleming Arena where I started out, where I called my very first game. So it felt very set. It felt very full circle.
Yeah, wow. So you went from there, and then you were in the SJ. What teams were with the SJ again?
I was with the Estevan Bruins, and I was spoiled when I was in Estevan. Our first season was 17-18, and obviously what a lot of people unfortunately remember about that year is the Humboldt Broncos crash, and it's something that's embedded in my memory from that year. But it's along with, just a really good group of guys that I got to work with, both coaches and players that I'm still in touch with to this day, and a team that went all the way to Game 7 of a very, very emotional SJHL final against the Nipawin Hawks. I don't know how many broadcasters can say they had a year like that in their lives, and I got it my very first year. So if I wasn't hooked on broadcasting when I started, I sure was by the time 17-18 was finished.
Well, we are sure excited to have you along. So, again, welcome, officially. We have got a lot to get through. Right now, we do have to play this interview that we did with Carson Bjarnason, who was here in the studio earlier on this week. And then when we come back, we're going to be live with Chris Moulton. So if you are watching live on YouTube, make sure to drop in those questions. Barney, how's it going?
Yeah, there you go. Good, how are you guys?
Good, man, good. It's been a busy summer for you.
Yeah, it's a little bit of running around.
We haven't seen you around here lately, though. It's nice to get some life in the building. It's been a long summer without having players around here. It's nice to get you guys back in and exactly that, breathe some life back in here. But it's been very hectic for you. You've been in and out doing a lot of things. Let's go back towards the end of last season. Let's talk through the draft. What was that whole thing like?
Yeah. I guess foremost, obviously, Danny's there, right? It's pretty special to share that with him, especially him going 9th. That's... really proud of him for doing that. That's awesome for him. Just there with my family. Showed up in Nashville a couple days before, just kind of get to tour the city a little bit and get to know what's going on and how much of a party city it really is. And we got to go to the Country Music Hall of Fame, so that was pretty sweet. Saw a lot of cool stuff there. Obviously, me and my brother playing guitar for the last few years. It's kind of cool to see Ethan. My brother Ethan had the same guitar as a lot of famous people in there. He just picked it up the other month there, so it was cool to see that. Cool to see the city. We got to see the rink, got a tour of that, and then obviously draft day, second day. It was sitting at 51, and I wasn't sure who would take me. I'm a goalie, so it's kind of just a toss up. So it was pretty cool to go there.
Yeah, I don't think there's such thing as a boring NHL city to have the draft in. They tend to pick pretty good locales, but it feels like you hit the jackpot getting to go to Nashville.
Oh yeah, all the buddies of mine that did go to Nashville said they, obviously for camp staying there, they said it was just so wicked. It's a nice place, and they kind of gave us the debrief of it. It's over the last few years, it's definitely become a hockey city, and just the culture that the city has.
What was one of the coolest things that you saw there at the Country Music Hall of Fame?
Oh man, there was definitely a lot of Johnny Cash stuff.
Very cool. Yep.
And he had his own little store downtown that we went to. I picked up a harmonica there, so I'm figuring out how to play that.
The glutton in me is wondering how the fried chicken was. Nashville's got the reputation for that.
Yeah, it was good. I got to try a little bit of everything. I tried some steaks. I tried the chicken there. I tried, you name it. I had the mac and cheese there and stuff, and it was all pretty good.
That's awesome.
We're hunting a sponsor for the podcast, Tourism Nashville. You want to get in on this? You want to send us some stuff? Like we're on board here.
Yeah, for
not the only NHL city you got to see this offseason, though. You got to go to Philadelphia to be part of the Flyers development camp. What was that experience like?
Oh, it was super cool. You're treated so well. No matter where you go, I'm sure every NHL team does pretty well, but I've heard Philly is pretty top notch in the way they do things around the rink, and little habits, little things you do throughout the day. It's pretty cool to be able to say that I went to Philly.
What was that whirlwind like? So going back to the draft where you're waiting to hear your name called, you don't know who's going to take you and you even you interviewed with almost every team in the NHL, right? So you really truly had no idea where you were going to be going. Yeah. So from that excitement of being picked to meeting all those people to then basically going right after development camp very quickly, just kind of talk us through that process of meeting all of them.
Going to development camp the next day was probably the quickest turnaround I've ever had. I mean, you're at the draft, and the next morning you're flying out. So first, that was something to get used to. I didn't know how long I'd stay there for either. I just wanted to, be able to kind of go off my own and see what the city was like, obviously. So it's I got to do that for a little bit and then came home. But yeah, I mean, everybody's gonna say the same thing. It's pretty cliche that you black out and you don't really know what's happening, right? Like you'd think that when you're watching interviews and stuff, you're just like, you don't black out. Like, that's not what happens, but you really have no clue what's going on. Like, I was thinking that I was going to be worried about if I was going to trip over the steps and stuff. I walk funny in the first place, so I didn't know if I'd make it down the stairs in one piece, but I did. And then, I went down there. They had a jersey for me, and they had my name already and hats. And
it was spelled right?
Yeah, apparently it wasn't the first time. And then they
really?
made another nameplate that was spelled right. So
good for them fixing their mistakes, because I did happen to do some digging. And I won't call anyone out individually, but when I was looking through articles on the Flyers development camp to see what the pundits and the media thought of you, they were impressed, but there was one guy who consistently referred to you as Connor Bjarnason.
Yeah.
That's a little worse, I guess.
I saw
spelling
that.
The last name.
I saw a couple times they spell my name like with two S's. There's two N's one time. Bjarnason. Yeah, it's all good. It's a wacky last name. I don't blame them. It's all good.
If there was anybody who wouldn't be offended by it, it's probably you. So
I try to be easygoing about it. I understand.
That's true. Now, you are an easygoing guy, great community guy. We talked about that already on the podcast and the relaunch there in episode 1. But, for this year, Carson, you're coming into now your third year with the team. Yeah. Very exciting roster looking like on paper. Looks to be a big bounce back year. How exciting is it for you to see where the team was and now where the team is going? I'm
ecstatic. I'm super excited for this season. It's going to be, obviously we have Roger and Charlie coming off a pretty hot summer there. Same as me. Like last year, I was fortunate enough to be able to do that too, and they were overseas, so it's just that much cooler, right? They're hopefully going to be coming in with a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence, which they should have. They're two great players, so same thing with me and Danny. Hopefully, we're going to be around for the first bit of the season too, and throughout the year. So it'll be good. We do have some leadership stuff to kind of hash out. We want to make sure we're kind of changing our program here. Making sure we're including all the young guys and stuff as we were before, but just really making that a stable in our leadership ways. And yeah, Manti, Highland, obviously, all those kind of guys. Kanger, it'll be really cool.
And a lot of returning guys in particular on the blue line. How much easier does that make your job as a goaltender, knowing who's going to be the first line of defense in front of you every given night?
Super important, for sure. You learn to communicate. I remember when I was 16 and my first few practices were absolutely horrendous playing the puck. I don't think the coaches were too impressed with just the way that I was communicating stuff. I didn't know how to. I came from AAA Bantam, basically, and throughout that next COVID season, we didn't play. So to have Q back, Kanger, Turns, all those kind of guys that are, always vocal and they know how I play, it's definitely really going to make my job easier.
And you've had a great summer, not to just blow smoke up here right now, but you're looking great. You're looking like you're in shape, like you were working out, you enjoyed some Nashville chicken, but you didn't eat too much of it. Just talk us through like how this summer was going just for your personal training in midst of all this chaos.
Yeah, it was definitely important. Something I wanted to take a step in this summer. I haven't always been the most filled out guy, so it's something I kind of want to work on and try to put on some mass. And Philly definitely helped me out with that. They have some wicked facilities there, and just overall, people that can help you out with everything like that. So I put on some size there, and then obviously coming back, you're just kind of working out. You kind of stay away from the ice a little bit.
When you talk to hockey players who, come from sometimes even other WHL teams, but from junior A, junior B, and they're making their way up, and they come and they see our facilities, they're absolutely blown away, right? Because what we've done the last few years here with the Wheat Kings, it's all world class. But then to be fair, you go to a place like Philly, what was that like walking into that room and just seeing how their setup is?
They had just redone like most of what I was walking into, so it was almost brand new. And either way, if it wasn't, it was in the next within the last 5 years or something, they said. So it was so sweet. I mean, you walk in and they're like, take whatever you want, take this, take that, and then they're telling you to make yourself comfortable, introduce yourself. I got to see the head coach there too, and got to meet him. So yeah, I mean, overall, I'm just super, super glad that I got to do that for the first time instead of, having to do it here at training camp coming up. And, you just kind of take that first stepping stone, right?
There's a pretty clear Western Hockey League connection with the Flyers organization, and we'll come back to the Brandon connections in a minute because the organization is still covered with them. But there's one in particular I want to talk about, and that's Carter Hart. You're going to get a chance to work with him a little bit, maybe learn from him when the main camp of the Flyers rolls around. How excited are you to get to watch him a bit?
Super pumped. I'm super excited. Him and Carey Price were my two kind of favorite growing up, especially, in that World Juniors that he played in and won. So since then, it's just definitely been a kind of common tendency for me to try emulate my game to those two as best as I can. And obviously, I take some tools for myself, but it'll be really cool. I'm excited to meet him.
And then there's the Brandon connections that we've been kind of talking about, just between Chris and I. They've changed a little bit. The Flyers have changed management. Some players have moved on, but there's still some pretty deep ties, it seems, between the Brandon area and the Flyers organization. Is that something that you knew about going into the draft or after you got selected?
Yeah, I kind of thought about it more afterwards. I tried to do my research on every team a little bit. Like you said, I had kind of talked to, most teams, so it was important for me to kind of walk in knowing what I was, coming into in case I had an interview after, and I was stunned and didn't know what to say. So, just making sure I knew some of the players that had been there, kind of throughout the whole Wheat Kings history kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's kind of cool to say that I'm a part of that now. So.
That's awesome. So now we turn the page. We are like a week away from like Wheat King training camp and everybody getting back. How much have you talked to the other guys about this season so far? Like, have you been in touch with, like, obviously Danny, you were talking about you're at the draft but like all the rest of the team, are you guys starting to amp up the group chat a little bit now? That's getting closer too.
It's starting to get active. Some guys are too active.
Who's the okay, you gotta call somebody out. Who are the guys who are getting too active already?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Who's just too excited?
Oh man, Jovi's gotta slow down a little bit.
Jovi's pretty amped up.
17. No, it's okay. I love to see it. He's a great kid. I'm super excited for him to come in. It'll be awesome.
Doesn't every group chat have that one guy? They're like, my phone's in my pocket right now, just spamming messages. There's somebody in one of my group chats doing the exact same thing.
It's either Calder and me arguing, or it's Jovi just saying some random stuff and telling him to be quiet, leave my phone alone.
This is like a brotherhood when you guys get back together, and you guys are together a lot during the season, riding the bus together. So I can only imagine about how much excitement there is, around this time for you guys to build up. Yeah. It's a little different than like a back to school feeling. Probably a little more happier.
Yeah, Mom used to make me like back to school, but this is something I can kind of naturally flow into, which is nice. So I think this year more than anything, I'm amped up to get going with the guys. I miss them all. Obviously, like you said, they're all your brothers out there, and you live with these guys every day. So it'll be really cool to get back and see all of them.
And we talk about the family too. You got obviously lots of family in the area. Everybody's good. Are you coming out to the games again this season?
Yeah. I think some people got some season tickets, and then obviously you have a couple that you can pass out to your parents. So they'll be around, and we just moved to this summer. My parents moved just outside of Carberry, so it's a nice little acreage there, and a little bit more of a longer drive, but they'll be able to make it out.
That's awesome. All right, Barney. Any last questions there, Rob?
Just one last one for me, because you mentioned brotherhood there, Chris, and that kind of jarred something in my mind here. The fraternity within the fraternity there is goalies, and there's going to be some young goalies coming into the team this year. They're going to be looking at you the way you might have looked at a guy like Ethan Kruger your first year. What kind of advice are you going to offer them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, Krug was really important to the way that I, kind of made my stable and my stepping stone into the league. He helped me out a lot. He just kind of gave me those little reassurance quotes, and just, he really helped me out. So I'm just going to try to, kind of do what he did for me. Obviously, if they have questions, I'm going to answer them. I'm going to be honest with them. And, yeah, just super excited to meet all of them, especially the new drafted guys and stuff. So, yeah, camp's fun. I love it.
Again, our big thanks to Carson Bjarnason for taking the time there and talking to us earlier this week. Here we are back live now in the Brandon Wheat Kings studio, and joined magically with the Director of Hockey Operations. We got Chris Moulton. Moltzy, how are you?
Good. I'm.
You like a kid at Christmas?
I am getting there. Yeah. It's the preamble is. The preamble can be a little tedious, but the closer we get to being on the ice, the better I feel. So yeah, we're getting close. I'm excited. Yeah.
That is awesome. It's a very, very exciting time around here. We got a lot to get through. We only have you for a few minutes because this is the day of registration. So as we record this, we are less than an hour away from registration beginning. You got the players and parents meeting happening later tonight, and the teams have been decided. Before we break down some of the players we want to talk about, what was it like building these teams with the assortment of talent that the Wheat Kings have coming into this weekend?
It was good. I mean, I did it at home about 35 times trying to figure out what was fair. And usually what happens is you say, Jesus, one team's pretty stacked, and then there'll be the team that's 0-3. So it's, we just try to, being that this is the first time in Brandon since I've been here where we've went to just 3 teams and had no rookie camp, we're trying to find the balance between veterans, and then the veterans go to kids that are close to playing or going to play. And then you got some 08s that aren't going to play, and then you got some camp invites. So each team you try to balance that out where you just have a really good balance, because when it comes to camp, it's all about matching lines. We don't want Nate Danielson playing against an 08 invite yet, So we'd have to try to figure it out where we have four solid forward lines according to where they are. So it was fun, but I mean, I've done this 1,000 times, so. And once I play around with it for a few hours, I usually try to get it close anyways. So.
You touched on something there, the lack of a rookie camp, and we were talking a little bit about it just between us, and you mentioned that actually is pretty helpful for you as you're trying to evaluate these players, because you're evaluating them in the same setting.
Yeah, and the thing about it is what I learned here in Brandon for the last couple of years is, when we got to like game 3 in main camp, Roger McQueen and Klippenstein and Hadland and Alec that was their 8th game, and so it was a lot. So now we literally have 3 games, and then the black and gold game, and it does clean it up quite a bit. When you're having a ton of rookie camps, you keep inviting kids, and sometimes it might bring the level of play down a little bit. And now the kids that we have here have legitimate opportunities to make our hockey team, and the kids that can't make our hockey team have legitimate opportunities to be on our list. So it becomes instantly competitive.
When you're talking about building these teams as well, you're talking about trying to make it, a little bit fair and how that battles out. But also, there's got to be some direct battles that you're excited for when each of these teams faces each other, just to see how these guys match up. So let's go through a couple of the names that we do see here that we have coming in. The year that we're going to start with, for kind of obvious reasons, is the 07s. Those are the players that are coming on, and this would be their natural rookie year, and there are a lot of top prospects on here. In the last couple of weeks, we've talked about a number coming into this. Some of the top 07 battles. Which ones are you most looking forward to?
To be honest, the entire 07 forward group for sure. Joby Ballmiller had come in and has played games, and Easton Oded had played games. But, to be truthful, we've just got a really strong group of 07s, and we were never in a hurry to sign anybody in that group because, to be honest, we wanted to get to this stage where it was competitive and they were actually really ready to play. And so now these 07 forwards are coming in, and the D-man too. The 07 forwards are coming in to make our hockey team. They're not coming in to prove that I'm better than Johnny or better than Jimmy. They're coming in to say, I want to play, and I want to play now. And so that entire 07 group up front, it is going to be crazy competitive. And the best part about it is you have different dimensions. You have Brady Turco, who is, advanced level, has hockey sense and skill. And then you have other players like a Ben Binder-Nord, who is just this hard kid that plays a big body that plays up the middle. You have Brendan Van Owen, who is, such a slick goal scorer that has an innate ability to find holes to, you know, Dominic Greco, who's like lightning in a bottle that just flies, and going on and on, you know, Ethan Stewart and all these types of guys are just good players. So if I can honestly say going in, we don't know who the next 07 is going to be that's going to play on our roster, and that's an exciting part. And going back, you want to extend it even further, we have, you know, Grady Hope, we have Emerson Clark, and we have Tal Flory, and here's 3 really good young D-men too that are coming to push. So that's the key right now, is not the key, but that's a super exciting part for me, because now we get to decide who's who. And for a long time, you're saying, okay, what are they going to be like when they have a chance to play? Well, now they have a chance to play.
And all, like on the 2007s, I mean, you did a great job. You name most of them. Like, there's going to be great battles. There's one here that was not a draft pick, but is a list name, and this name just jumps out. I said I was going to ask you about this player because I can't imagine how awesome it would be to see this name on the back of a Wheat King jersey. Tell us about Thunder Blanket.
Yeah, Henry
Thunder Blanket.
Henry Thunder Blanket is a very solid hockey player. Our scouts identified him early. He just plays the game hard, and he's honest. And he was one of the first guys when we put out our scouting. I put out to my scouts, hey, who do you want to come to camp? And my Saskatchewans were a guy like, they said, if we can get Thunder Blanket to camp, it's going to be good. So he just plays the game hard. He seems to have a passion, and you know, I've dealt with him a little bit through text and email, and my scouts have, and he's a great young man that's excited to come to Brandon. So he's just one of those guys that's going to come and push. So
I'm sure he won't make the team based on this, but as an announcer, the name Thunder Blanket, it's exceptional. I can't wait to say that on air a couple of times.
Especially as me, the public address guy. Can you imagine if I get to give that name a little sauce after after a goal?
I'm sure Henry would love that.
Come on, Multi.
Henry would love that too. He's waiting for that.
It's like a car going downhill. You don't need to give it a push, but if you give it one, it's going to go far.
Yeah.
There is another name on there that's, okay, maybe it doesn't have quite the same luster of a Thunder Blanket, but I will say I do have appreciation for this name, and more importantly, it sounds like we have some appreciation for this young man's hockey talent, and that's Owen Korkish, a guy who stood out at some previous skates the Wheat Kings hosted.
Yeah, he was outstanding at our prospects camp, and you know, we had a ton of conversations about him coming into camp, and our guy in Minnesota, our scout, kept saying, geez, I want to get him to camp. And I said, well, let's make sure, let's list them so we can try. And little did we know that, you know, if the family has ties to southern Manitoba. So it wasn't as tough a sell as we thought it was. And what a great kid from a great family. And he is going to turn heads. His skill level is high. He's intelligent, and he can skate. So I'm hoping that Owen does the same thing when he gets here. And another guy I kind of omitted was Winnipeg's Quinn Parker. I mean, here's a 6'3" kid that's smart and strong. So this is just like, that's it. And we still have we've invited a couple of 07s from Winnipeg that are invites that are good players. So it's going to be, the 07 group is going to be super fun to watch.
One player who's still kind of in that category in terms of, you know, trying to make the team, but a late birthday, that is Klippenstein. Now, Carter Klippenstein looks at prospect camp. We described him as a man amongst boys, and here for video day, we were doing stuff with him. His demeanor, the way he was just prepared, it seems like, for camp, expecting a couple big things from some of those kids as well.
Yeah,
the 06s.
Carter's next step is the Western Hockey League. You know, like we fully expect him to play and stay. He probably could have played last year. But here he is, a kid that's from Lethbridge. He decides to go to the Edge, never been at the Edge, and they make him captain. So he's captain to one of the best U18 teams. And
they had a great season there as well, with him as captain, correct?
100%. So sometimes it's just better off leaving them where they are. You know, kids don't need to be in a hurry. And for him, what a great thing. He goes and he's a captain. He learns to live away from home, and now he's ready. And Carter is going to be a very good Western Hockey League player.
You very much then, I would surmise from that you take that same approach as a lot of NHL franchises would, right? That time down, same thing with players in junior, don't rush them up. A little different with our timelines and theirs, with just trying to delay that 3-year entry-level contract from starting, where ours is a little more, you know, time sensitive. But something like that could be a lot more beneficial for that kid to stay down there, be a part of a very successful program, be not just part of it, but a major, you know, integral part of it, and then be ready to step in the next year.
Well, it's, you know what, it's always a balance of how they are mentally, how they are physically, and what their abilities are. Some kids are so ready to play, but they're not ready to leave home. Some guys are mentally ready to leave home and are mature enough, but their game isn't ready. And so it wasn't that Clipper was lacking any of them, but I know that when he went to Calgary, every one of those things grew. And I am like that. I don't see the hurry in rushing kids to play. I see more failure than success a lot of those times. So for me, it's never in the hurry. But for a guy like Clipper, it made sense at the time, and I'm glad he did it because he's way farther ahead right now than he would have been had he been sitting on a bench somewhere.
That said, it sounds like there are a lot of young players who have a legitimate shot at competing for at least an exhibition audition with this group. And I think Wheat Kings fans are doing the math and going, well, we've got this many roster spots. We've got this many guys who in theory could play. Somebody's going to be the odd man out. What kind of competition level, based on that, are you expecting for this group?
We're a non-playoff team at the end of the day. We thought we had a pretty good team last year. We fell short. But there has to be a change, and that doesn't mean that we're going to change the players, but that our veteran players have to understand that these other kids are coming to play. Mm-hmm. And we've also invited some. I mean, we'll talk about that, I think, but we've invited some, guys with Western Hockey League experience. We invited 2 guys from Junior A. So yeah, the biggest thing is Marty and I and our group wanted a competitive environment to say, hey, you know what, if you do not want to elevate your game and you do not want to be a playoff team, then you might not be a fit for the Wheat Kings, and we're going to keep pushing that because we want to be successful.
All the other 2006s, in terms of the forwards on the camp list here, were players who were part of the team last year, except for Klippenstein. On the back end, though, that does change. Let's talk about a few of these guys who are fighting for spots. So let's start with Prohar.
Just another guy that one of our scouts said, hey, I like this kid. Can we give him an opportunity? So just, an intelligent puck-moving defenseman that played U18 in Saskatchewan. Okay. Billy Chow is one of our guys there, and he's in PA, and Mark Penny's in Regina, and they have a really good handle on that U18 league. And so Prohar is just one of those guys that's a puck-moving guy, and we wanted to see if he can elevate his game.
So there's 2 more on here of the 06s. There's Bray.
Yeah.
Who's Bray?
So Ryland, he's a Manitoba guy.
Ryland Bray.
Yeah, Ryland Bray, right. U18 kid, good-sized kid, plays the game hard, makes a good first pass. He was a guy we identified right away as well. He'll come in and he'll be competitive. Yeah.
Another one is one of our picks. That's Lambert. So
yeah, and
Lambert.
We know Lambo good,
yeah.
And he's right on the cusp. We just need another gear. We needed one more step, and he stuck around for a while last year. Had a really good year this year, and to be honest, with a guy like Lambo, he's got to go now, and so we're hoping that he takes that step in the next week or so.
Chris and I were talking about this before you arrived, that part of the exciting part of training camp is seeing who does find that next gear. Somebody's going to. It's a league where players are coming in with a lot of growth and development under their belts just by getting a year older. For you, is that part of the excitement as well, seeing which players have made the most of their summer, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, probably about 2 weeks ago, I sent about 7 text messages to 7 of our veterans, and I said, hey, it's time. We have expectations that you're going to be better. Not that they were poor, but we need better, and that comes with being a non-playoff team. So we definitely have a group of veteran players that need to take a step in order for us to be better and in order for them to have personal success. So, I expect an intense competitive camp and an environment, and if our veterans aren't prepared, then there's going to be somebody that will be.
And as you alluded to, that some of the players pushing them actually do have junior experience elsewhere, and those are players I think we want to dive into a little bit and talk about. And one of them spent some time last season in the Western League, and that was Hayden Wedden. And looking at him, what I notice is if you go back a couple years, he had a lot of success in Manitoba's AAA circuit.
Well, we'll bring up both guys. We'll bring up defenseman Trey Fouquet. Both of these kids were really good minor hockey guys. Good. They were drafted. They had lots of success at minor hockey, and maybe things didn't go their way. But I believe both kids. For me, Hayden has a chance to come in and stay. It's up to Hayden, right? And Trey's the same way. I think Trey was disappointed being let out of PA. And I think he even told me he's had a lot of time to reflect on what he needed to do. And we said, well, change it and we'll figure it out. And so having 2 guys, that's another thing that we've never had since I've been here, is we've never brought in junior guys or Western League guys. And it automatically makes it competitive because these guys know what it takes. So having Wedden and having Hayden and Trey there, it brings up our camp. but we're also going to give them an honest opportunity and a look because I didn't want to waste their time. These are legit opportunities that we want them to take.
I'm glad you brought up Trey actually really quickly because he was in Prince Albert the 2 years that I was there, and I know he was a third-round pick of that organization. There's potential there, and I think when the exhibition games roll around, if he's part of that roster that gets to get a little bit of competition in there, that's when Wheat Kings fans might fall in love with this player. Yeah. Because during the exhibition series, when he was allowed off the leash, so to speak, this kid hits like a truck. He and Big River last year against the Saskatoon Blades threw one of the hardest hits I've ever seen, like a throwback Rob Blake style hip check on a guy and knocked him in the next week. This kid has some nastiness to his game.
And that's what we're hoping. I just think I'm not taking anything away from our previous group, but once again, non-playoff team, need to compete harder, need to play harder, need to elevate our game, and if somebody else comes in and they deserve that opportunity, they're going to get it.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I first saw the camp rosters, and there was no first names, I just saw the last name. I saw Fouquet. I thought, oh, does he have a brother? Yeah. And they said, no, it's Trey. I went, I remember that draft, him being picked, and our guys being disappointed because they would have wanted him. A lot of teams would have wanted him. So, to have him come here, hopefully reset and have a great camp, that would be huge. You mentioned not just those guys, but a couple of Junior A players as well that we're bringing on in.
Yeah, we have Boston Harkness, who played in Melville, and I've had some time for him before, and our guys in Saskatchewan, and he's a big, lanky guy that takes up space, that has the ability to make plays, and he was just one of those kids that it just seemed like he still wanted to take a crack at the Western Hockey League. And then the other one is Dittmer, who's a local guy who was on Everett's list for a couple of years. And when Everett released him from his list, I thought maybe that'll be another fire for him. He played in Winkler, and it's just another opportunity, right? Like sometimes these kids, not take it for granted, but they get to the Western Hockey League and they're like, okay. And then it's a bit of a humble experience when they get released and have to go back to Junior A. And so I'm hoping that that's the case with these guys, that when they're back in Junior A, they go, okay, well, this might be my last opportunity here and I'm going to take it. So I'm hoping both guys have some success.
I do want to get your opinion on something because you've talked a couple times about the guys from the Saskatchewan AAA circuit, and I've heard more than one scout suggest that for whatever reason, Saskatchewan's AAA league seems to be a very mature league. Like it's a little bit tighter checking. It seems like guys come out of it a little more defensively responsible. Has that been your experience?
It's a funny thing because so everybody makes fun that Saskatchewan's U15 league is a AA league, but then their U18, they take a step. So that's what everybody always kind of get concerned about. You took a kid out of Yorkton that was a AA U15 kid. Why didn't you take the kid out of AAA? Well, because that kid's going to be playing U18 in Saskatchewan. The biggest thing that I think is unfortunately, the Saskatchewan U18 league is a really good league, and they almost treat it like junior, so it kind of mentally prepares them. The other thing is BC and Alberta for sure have the tendency to lose a lot more players to the CSSHL, and so that does take away from the minor hockey programs in Calgary, Edmonton, Red Deer, Kamloops, Kelowna, Vancouver. But in Saskatchewan, the majority of the kids stay. And so the best players in Saskatchewan normally stay, and it makes their league more competitive. But I've been doing this for a long time, 28 years, I think it is, and I've always had a fondness for kids that came out of the U18 league in Saskatchewan for sure.
We've talked about the forwards, the defense. One thing we have not really cracked into yet is the goaltending. And obviously, we have a great goaltender in Carson Bjarnason, second-round pick, Philadelphia Flyers, expecting a big year from him, but the battle for backup after that. You got Nick Jones, who's coming on in, who had some experience here last year, and you got a couple of young guys who are really been pushing him, including Ethan Eskett, who we saw at prospect camp. We had Green get into a game or two last year and played really well. What are you most excited for the goaltender battle?
Well, it's who wants to be the guy. Obviously Jonesy can be the guy. Jonesy can push Barney, but for me it's one of those things where Jonesy has to come and be his best for a little while here and prove that he's still the guy, you know what I mean? And Ethan, one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best 06 goaltenders in Western Canada. He just needed another year at Yale, and he's physically and mentally mature. He's ready to go, and he'll push Barney, and he'll push Jonesy. And then Ryder Green, here's a kid from northern BC that we took a bit of a flyer on. Only saw him one weekend, but we liked him. Last year's prospect camp was okay, and then he just grew. He was good, but we wanted more. And then at prospects camp, you could see that this young man put the work in and was really good. And I just picked him up at the airport here, and he's grown again, and he's become a mature young man, and he will push for a future goaltending spot for sure. And like I said, you can't have enough of those guys. You know, like you don't have goaltending, you don't win. Don't care how good you are. And so if we can build an abundance of guys and you know, either have a place for them or have a place somewhere else, that's fine. But we need goaltending.
There are certain franchises, for whatever reason, seem to churn out more positions than others, just, you know, generally. For me, I felt like the Wheat King goaltending has always been near the top, just in terms of who's in the system and who's coming on up. How do you feel about this current crop of guys? Would you say that, like, compared to all the other, you know, teams in the division, that the guys that we have here across the board would be near the, like, top of your list?
I think we do just fine. And trust me, I am not a goalie guy. So if I look back on my career, I didn't knock it out of the park. I think I listed Dustin Tokarski at a Christmas tournament, and that was good for me. But there's been a lot of guys that I was wrong on. And yeah, you have to have an abundance of those guys and take chances. It was no different than the draft this year. We really liked Dylan McFadden, but I really like Grayson Mraz. And so, you know, we drafted Dylan. I went home, I sat on my couch, and I'm like, how come he didn't get drafted? How come he didn't get drafted? I really like him. I can't miss out on this kid. And then I said to Marty, I'm listing Grayson because, you know, I really like Dylan, but it never hurts to have a couple of those guys. So we listed Grayson, and he was great, you know. So I just don't think you can have enough of those guys. I mean, you can't keep them on your list and bury them so nobody else can have them. But, you know, you have that honest competition. So then if all of a sudden we fill our holes and there's room for somebody else, we can move them along. But I just think you can't have enough good goaltenders in your system.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, if people want to see that direct battle between Mraz and McFadden, you have them on Team Redden, so people can see in the direct game how they're going to go head-to-head with each other.
Yeah.
And prevailing wisdom in the NHL with goalies is you don't often use a first-round pick on them. Like, you can go down the list of NHL goaltenders who've gone on to Vezina-worthy careers who they've found in the 6th and 7th or 5th rounds or whatever the case may be. Is it the same in your experience scouting young goaltenders that it can be tough for them to get to that first-round pick area?
It's scary. I always think, what did I say? This was my 28th draft, and I took a goalie in the second round once. No firsts, maybe a third, I can't remember, but I went as high as a second one time. And it is scary, especially at our level, because you're drafting 14-year-olds, right? And when you look at the size, like Dylan McFadden's going to be a big kid. We knew that, but he's something I compare him. It's like a baby giraffe. He's got some work to do. And then you'll have a guy that's 5'8", 5'9", that's way more polished. But can they play at our level? So it's a scary thing because goalies are always tough. I think somebody told me in our organization, Kelly McCrimmon used to say we don't draft goalies, we trade for them if we need them, just because it's a scary proposition. But yeah, it's risky. I mean, but the kids that went this year that went at the top were great goalies. So it just depends on what you want.
The last thing we're going to talk about is the group of 08s that can't stay for the full season. They know that going in, call up on an emergency basis only, end of the year, come up as Black Aces kind of thing. But of those 08s, we still going to be having a lot of battle because they want to show that they're ready to take this next step now. Mm-hmm. You're excited to see all these guys, I'm assuming, as well.
Yeah, 100%. We drafted some competitive young kids in that 08 group, and so we, obviously Jackson's going to play exhibition games. Isaac Davies will play exhibition games. Gio Pentelis is going to play exhibition games.
All the signed guys.
All the signed guys except for Nigel Boehm, who broke his arm, and that's. Oh. Yeah, so he's a great player. But then on top of that, when you look at Ganda and Bandera and Boyce and Fedora, they're good kids and they're good players.
I love how you guys have described them too. Like, they seem like the kind of players the Wheat King fans are going to love. Those spark plug, energetic, get in the corner and battle kind of guys.
Yeah.
Work for the puck.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they play hard. We have a group of kids that are super competitive, and to be honest, that was dictated from our previous year. Like, we thought last year that we had enough skill, but we didn't think we played hard enough. And it's not about fighting; it's about battling, competing, getting to pucks first, adversity. And so when we went into this year again, we thought, hey, like, we need some kids that are warriors, and we'll work with them, and that's what we think we've drafted in that 08 group.
Well, we have only got half an hour now until your registration, so we appreciate you stopping on by and doing this with us. This is not going to be like a one and done with Chris Moulton. We're going to have you back on because, especially after camp, we'd love to talk to you again as we get ready for preseason. So we have got game number 1 of training camp happening tomorrow at 4:30. Now, again, all the games we're about to mention here are absolutely free, and all except for the long weekend Monday game are at the Keystone Center. So at Westable Place, you got Team Stone versus Team Redden tomorrow at 4:30. You got Team Stone versus Team McCrimmon Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Team McCrimmon versus Team Redden Saturday at 5:30 p.m. On Sunday, those teams are going to be scrapped for the day, all non-veteran players, which, Chris, that game is going to be a lot of fun for a lot of different reasons because we're talking about these battles. We're going to see it in game 1, 2, and 3, but when you get to that game 4 and you take out the vets, and this is your last chance on Sunday, and after that, that's when those cuts are made and you find out who's going to the black and gold game on Monday. That one will be huge. So 11 a.m., and then on Monday, we move over for the black and gold game at J&G Homes Arena, and that one is going to be at 1 o'clock. King's Kitchen will be open. That'll be, as always, a lot of fun as we do a bit of a production show for it as well. So black and gold. But Chris, we still got you really quick last thoughts on that game number 4, the all non-veteran players, because we've sort of done this before, but it's never been like this. Like, they've taken out some of the vets, but there's still been some just to help keep some consistency. This is the first year since I've been here the Wheat Kings have done all non-veteran for that last game on Sunday.
We just knew that all the veterans will play in the black and gold game, and we wanted to give the other kids another game, but we also wanted to, we know that some of the veteran players are going to carry the load during their games. And then after everybody's comfortable and the 07s and the 08s are super comfortable, they're starting to reach their where they want to be, and then we're going to put them in roles to be successful. So then they're the go-to guys. And obviously 10, 12 kids from that game will still go to the black and gold game, but I just wanted to pull those veterans out, give them a practice, give them a break for the Monday game. And yeah, that'll be a super competitive game. That's going to be the fun one when we start to break the scouts and I start to break up the teams for that one, because it's going to be competitive.
Are all the scouts here?
No.
I've only seen a couple of them. I saw Sour.
Yeah.
So Mark's here.
Unfortunately, he's here.
And of course all the local guys.
Yeah.
But all the rest of them, because I know we're getting everybody in this weekend, right?
Yeah. I was just joking about Mark. I'm excited. Those are my boys. They do a great job.
It's the podcast. We can do that.
Yeah,
we
can
joke on a podcast. Where do we come into here?
We have a great group of people that I love working with. We like each other a lot. So yeah, 2 or 3 of them are here today. The rest come tomorrow. We'll make a few trips to the airport, but they're super jacked. They love coming to Brandon. They love this. This is their Christmas too. They get to see their kids that they've competed for and fought for, as well as they get to see the invites. So, I love my guys, and they're a great group, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun, and love getting them back in. Just like all the players, it helps breathe life and some energy back in this building. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend gets so mad at me all summer long because all I do is wish away summer. I want it to be winter. I prefer ice fishing over real like summer fishing. I work in hockey, right? Like, this is when you want to have the events. So love having everybody back. This is great. We got lots of energy, lots of reasons to be excited for Brandon Wheat King country. So Moltz, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Enjoy, and we are going to talk to you again on the podcast, if not next week, the week after, because we got to catch up again.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Right.
Appreciate you coming
Thanks,
on,
Moltz. So the home opener, that is coming on up here on Friday, September the 22nd. We have got the Regina Pats going to be coming to town. You got your tickets for that going to be going on sale here right away. Coming up on the 5th of September, actually, all of the single game tickets are going to be made available, so you can go and you can check that out. Next week here, we have actually got the job fair going to be happening. It's happening at 5:30 to 7:30 at the Brandon Wheat King office next Wednesday. You can go and drop off your resume at that point, or email ahead of time. It's office@wheatkings.com. But we're going to be looking for just building our game staff, building for working at Fan Zone. If you ever wanted to maybe be Willie, if you ever thought, I should be the one who gets to put on that awesome costume and go and have a whole lot of fun, then we're going to be looking for that as well. So game day job fair, Wednesday the 6th, 5:30 to 7:30. As we get back here into the studio, and you know what? I'm going to transition that anyway. We're going to show that. as Chris Moulton was walking out. So we talked about the technical difficulties. That's hilarious. We're going to leave it like that. They can show my empty cup. We talked about technical difficulties heading into this thing with the camera. Ended up having to quickly swap cameras, and then this one was just sort of like sitting there balanced. And as Chris Moulton walked by, he absolutely knocked it over. So now on the screen, I'm completely sideways. But for most of the listeners of this podcast, they're not going to tell, so it's fine.
I mean, for an auditory medium, we're doing okay here. But anyone who's watching on, if you can twist to match that camera angle, you are more of a contortionist than I gave you credit for. That is my dexterity at work there, trying to put that camera back where it was and just not being able to do it.
Hey, wait, look at this. The other camera started to work.
Oh, for goodness.
Oh, man.
Oh, all it took was
Multi knocking something loose on top of it.
Multi's got the touch.
Now we got that great feed. Of course, it happens at the very end.
You know how it is when, like, if you have a problem with
classic.
your computer and you call the IT guy just shows up and all of a sudden everything's working and you feel like a jerk for dragging him away from his desk. Maltz has got that touch, I think. Anytime we got technical problems, we just got to get him in here.
We should have started with him. That is unbelievable. That is so funny. I cannot believe that the camera's now working completely fine. It's what delayed us. But all right.
It's preseason for us, too.
It's all going to go smoother from here, folks. Big thanks for listening. Episode 59 of the Weekly Harvest Podcast. Rob, I am super excited. We talked about this. I'm so stoked. I'm so excited for this weekend. We have got so much to look forward to, a lot of games coverage, and this is not the last people are going to be seeing from you. For me, not till next week. I like to be behind the camera. This is the one thing I still kind of do in the public. Besides that, it's going to be you on camera this weekend. We're going to talk to Perry Berkson, all the scouting staff, and get their thoughts on these games so people who want to follow along can tag along with the Wheat Kings social media all weekend long.
Absolutely. We have been counting down the days to training camp pretty much since I arrived. The countdown hits 0 tomorrow, and I could not be more pumped. This is going to be an awesome weekend, and it's going to lead into an awesome season.
Absolutely. So until we talk to you again, have yourself a good one for, the old email. We still haven't set up the new one, but people want to get a hold of us. Maybe we should give this out. If you ever want to have any questions or comments for the podcast, you can find us online too at wheatkings.com, but it's chris.falco at wheatkings.com and rob.man at wheatkings.com. Quickly, Rob, how many people pronounce your last name Mahone or Mahan before they actually meet you for the first time?
Pretty much all of them.
Everybody?
Out of the blue, I was at the police fire games a couple of weeks ago. One of my best friends was competing in it for Winnipeg, and the security guard looked at my ID and said, "Okay, Rob Mann." Never met this man in my life. First time I've ever heard anyone pronounce my name correctly first try. It clearly stuck with me. So good for the security guard whose name I did not catch at the police fire games, who apparently has some familiarity with my family name.
There you go. For Rob Mann, I'm Chris Falco. We will talk to you again next week. Have a good one. Cheers.